Hello, thank you for joining us. We are Angier Hope. What Angier Hope is a partnership of local churches in the Angier, North Carolina area. We've put this partnership together to provide videos to be a resource for you, to help you in various areas of need. And today we are addressing one need, one specific topic, and that is for parents in how to deal with a teenage child who's having some issues. Maybe they're making bad decisions. It's causing you a lot of stress and anxiety in your life, and you're wondering, what do I do? How can I possibly help? How can I intervene in the life of my teenager? Because I want their life to be good and fruitful and productive, and I know that that's very difficult. So I'm here joined by two fellow pastors in the Angier community, and so I'm going to toss the question over to them. So let's start here to my right with Mr. Mark here, Mark Howard of Kennebec Baptist Church. So the question is this: what advice would you give to parents as for how to intervene in the life of their teen? They're seeing them make some really bad life decisions. What would you tell them? And then after you go, we're going to go over here to my left to Mr. Thomas Allen of Angier Baptist.
Well, the first thing you're going to have to do is pray, because, kids, they will put you on your knees. Having teenagers especially will have you in front of the Heavenly Father asking Him for advice. And one of the things that I always kept telling myself is, do not kill them, because eventually they'll give you grandkids. But I think some of the best advice I've seen, there's really two ways to respond to a kid that's in trouble. You can act like nothing's going on. You can be like that ostrich and bury your head in the sand and just hope that everything is going to get better. And I have seen parents do this. Or you can be proactive, and you can actually just grab that bull by the horns and say, hey, what is going on? And I found in my own personal experience, the only way to handle it properly, I feel like, is to just address whatever the situation is. And depending on the severity of the situation, you may have to resort to drastic measures. I've known people who have had to have their kids forcibly taken to treatment centers because they had drug problems. I have known people that have had to, get counselors and take their kid to counseling. I've personally, as a parent, have taken kids to counseling because of issues that they were having. I have personally had to grab the bull by the horns with my kids and just say, this is not happening under my roof. I think as a parent, one of the things that we have to remember as parents is that we're in charge, and we set the rules in our home. And, I know there are a lot of egalitarian teachers out there that want to say that our kids are equal to the parents and have the same rights as their parents, but no, that's not the biblical model. The biblical model is the mom and dad are the head of the home, and we are in charge of those children. And I'm going to stand in front of God and give an account for how my kids end up, and I'm going to give an account for my parenting. And one of the things that I always wanted to do was make sure that whatever I did as a parent, that it was something I could stand in front of God and not have to hang my head down.
Okay. So to turn to you, Thomas, that parent's in front of you. Mm-hmm. Their teenager is making some awful decisions, which puts their life on a collision course with a train, falling off a cliff, etc. And it's not cute like an Acme hammer landing on their head, right?
That's right.
We're talking
That's
about
right.
life
This is
altering.
real life.
And the parent is freaking out over, what in the world do I do? Right, so clearly we should pray. Nothing else will drive us to prayer, maybe more than seeing our child that desperate.
That's right.
Urgency. So you're talking about intervening, right? So take the bull by the horns, because wishful thinking, it will just get better on its own. Chances are it's not just going to get better.
It's not.
That's what we're here for, to intervene. But then specifically, what does that look like? What does that parent do? What are some things they can do?
I think one of the things that they can do, there's 1,000 things to do, but first of all, see where you are personally. See what's going on and see how your relationship with God is in this moment. I think we all have a lot of stress, and that can cloud our judgment. When our kids are going through some things, that ratchets up stress. We've got stress at work. We may have stress in our family. We might be divorced. We might be separated. There's 1,000 things going on. There's 1,000 things going on in my kid's life. They just broke up with somebody, or their best friend just turned on them, or something else is going on. So we need to stop pray, pause, and reflect on what is happening in my child's life. Think about who that child is and what are some of the things that could be going on with them. And if you don't know what's going on in your kid's life, ask them. Sit down with them individually. Mark, I know you've said this to me many times. You try to spend time with each of your kids individually. If you don't know what's going on in your kid's life, who they're talking to, and how their friends are treating them, and are their friends even there?
Yeah.
So what you're saying is you got to know the context.
You got to know the
'Cause
context.
Bad
Absolutely.
decisions don't just happen out of nowhere.
That's right.
They happen out of there are other variables at play.
Yes.
It's not just hormones, that's part of it.
Yeah.
It's the relationships. What's their crew? Who are they running around with, kind of a thing. And the dynamics just even in your home.
That's right.
If I could interject that you have to consider the context of just your own faith as a parent. Mm-hmm. So like as a Christian, what I have said or taught might be different than what a non-Christian may have taught in the home. So there is one blessing as a Christian that we can rely on scripture such as the story of the prodigal son. So as a Christian, if I have taught the gospel and Jesus into my child's life and sown that seed, and if at some point maybe it took hold, but now they're the prodigal son or daughter, and now they're making some bad decisions, right? There's where the beauty of prayer is. I pray that they will come around just like the prodigal son did, right? That there's enough gospel influence to ultimately tether them back.
Right.
Then there are those individuals who maybe they don't have a relationship with Jesus, they're not a Christian, that's not part of the home, and so there hasn't been that infusion of grace and truth in such a way that, what now? Mm-hmm. And so how would you speak to that parent in particular that maybe it's not a Christian home, they're seeing their kid make bad decisions, so in that situation, prayer is not really ultimately so much of something that's normal to them. They don't even know to do that per se. What do you tell someone, again, they're not a Christian, never have followed Jesus, don't know the Bible, aren't part of church, and they still love their child and they want their child to do well. What do you tell that parent?
That's a good question, because generally speaking, the first thing I say is that's why we need Jesus. Because a situation like this, he's there to help you. It's great to have faith because you know that God will walk with you during that. But people without faith, obviously counseling, is a good option. But I would always, even then, would probably point them toward a Christian counselor that would have a set of values and standards that they would want to hold these. Because I believe a lot of times people will rise or fall to the expectations that are set for them. And so we in our home had some very high expectations for how our children were going to act, what they were going to be like, and the rules that I had under my house were, as long as you live under my house, you're going to abide by the rules of this home. I understand that there are people that don't have those rules. I understand that there are people that try to become friends to their kids instead of parenting them, and I believe that those certain scenarios create more problems in the home. But if I know somebody that's struggling, I'm going to probably recommend a counselor, recommend counseling for them and for their family. Depending on how difficult the situation is, there are rehab centers and places like that. There's a lot of drugs on our public schools, a lot of issues with drugs and problems like that. Pornography is a constant issue these days for young men, and even a lot of young women. So they're depending on the severity of the situation, I'm going to probably recommend that they get counseling. I'm going to recommend that the parent, I usually give them the advice that I always say, at the end of the day, I'm going to try to live with as few regrets as possible. I want to, whatever I'm going to do, however I'm going to act, I want to be able to look back on this 20 years down the road and know that I did my best, and whatever the situation is.
Right. And you mentioned regrets, and that's tricky because it's extremely easy for a parent to be filled with a certain amount of shame, embarrassment, regret. I should have done X, Y, Z, and that's why my kid's now dealing with the stuff they're dealing with, and that's heart-wrenching. one thing I would say is that in that moment, that's not the moment for regrets. We can have those conversations later, right? That right now is not time to have a pity party.
Yeah.
Or to make it about ourselves because I made bad decisions as a parent, which led to this. That's not the time. When your kid's in crisis, that is not the time to deal with that. So
I would jump in there too, Rick. If it's all about you, that's part of the reason that your kid is crying out.
That's part of the problem.
If it's just how good of a parent am I being, what about my life and my stress and what about my job and I'm trying to take care of you and I. There's a whole lot of things that our teenagers are going through that it's not necessarily our fault, but a lot of our perspective, our focus, our point of view, if it's only on us, we can do so much damage. Even the way you respond to that, because Proverbs 10:12 says this, hatred stirs up conflicts, but love covers all offenses. I find out my kid's doing this, and I blow up on them. How dare you do this? You are my child, and you can't do this to me. And it's all about you. Do you even... we want to save them. We want to help them, but the way we say it, if we just blow up at them... Now, I'm not saying, it's going to be fine. I love you. Yes, love covers all offenses, and love includes discipline. Love must include discipline. If you're going to be a parent, you have to discipline, and you have to be consistent with that discipline. But you have to be consistent with that discipline in love. Right. And especially if you're not in a Christian home, and if you don't know what this faith looks like and how do I follow Jesus, it starts with love. God is love. Right. And when they're struggling and they're going through this difficult time, yes, it boils our blood, and yes, we want to jump in and straighten them out. And yes, we do have to grab the bull by the horns. That is a huge part of this. But we have to do it in love.
Yeah. What do you do? Like, you're in the middle of the storm and you're lovingly trying to intervene. What do we tell these parents to do?
I would say too, just to answer that question there, Rick, help your kids see the consequences. That all decisions have consequences, and we have to accept those consequences. The consequence, the ultimate consequence for all of our sin was that Jesus Christ, God's own Son, was sent to this earth to live a perfect life, to not do anything wrong, and take on the punishment, to win the victory over sin and the paralyzing nature of sin.
Yes.
That is the ultimate consequence. That God's own Son went to the cross because of our sin, because we messed up. And if my kids don't see that there are consequences to their behavior, what's going to happen to this? And it's one thing for me to tell them. It's another thing for me to ask them questions. What do you think is going to happen? And help them go down that road, because... when I was a teenager, man, my parents didn't know a whole lot.
But it's hard when you're 16 years old, because when you're 16 years old, you walk on water, you're 8 foot tall, and you're bulletproof.
That's right.
So it's hard to explain to that teenager that there are consequences.
Well, I think one of the things that I've seen is, for the parent, like Thomas is saying, you have to allow the kid to suffer those consequences too. I know in a particular case I know of where the father would always come and rescue the son. Every time he would get in trouble, the father would come bail him out, would come and help him. And eventually the son got to a point where the father could not bail him out.
And that's a form of enabling, at least potentially. But how do you do that? Because you love your kid. You don't want to see them suffer or hit rock bottom.
But sometimes that's the loving thing to do.
Sometimes.
Is to let them face the consequences.
And Proverbs 12:1 says this, whoever loves discipline loves knowledge. But the one who hates correction is stupid, is what the Christian Standard Bible says here. Whoever loves discipline loves knowledge. But if you hate correction, it's stupid. And think about it. If you're taking a test and you get something wrong, I don't like that. I don't like being corrected. Yeah. Well, you're wrong. Helping our children experience those consequences, and hopefully in a way before it gets too dangerous. If it gets to that point where it is so dangerous, absolutely get them professional help.
Sure. Absolutely.
Absolutely get them that professional help. If it's not there, if you don't understand the context, if you don't understand what your child is going through, start with a conversation. Help them understand that you love them, that you're with them, that there are consequences for their behavior, and that, you know what, you're going to be beside them, but they have to face the consequences for their own.
So to try to summarize some of this, right?
Yeah.
Again, this is a really difficult, nuanced conversation because the variables are tremendous and every scenario is different. So here's what you two have said. Number one, don't turn a blind eye. See it and take it by the horns. Mm-hmm. Do it in love. Mm-hmm. That's key. So there has to be grace and compassion involved. Know the truth about the situation. Speak into it. Sometimes they may need professional counseling. That's often the case. And if I could just offer something, right? I left out the most important. It's point them to Jesus, right? Mm-hmm. Like bring Jesus to bear. So if you're out there and you're watching, and you're not a follower of Christ, and church isn't part of your life, and you're not like a Christian, we say, please, I implore you, parent, like start there. Like contact one of our churches and allow us the time, I guess, or the privilege to talk to you about what it means to follow Jesus. Because parenting's hard. Parenting without Christ, harder. Mm-hmm. Parenting with Jesus gives us hope. That's why we're Angier Hope, right? We want to show people the way to a life with a brighter tomorrow. So, and it begins with faith in Jesus. That's what gives you the place, the platform, the launching pad by which to then become that parent that you should be. Mm-hmm. It says in Proverbs 15, verse 1 and 2, it says, a gentle answer turns away wrath, a gentle one.
Yes.
So instead of getting mad, don't return anger for anger, right? Gentle, well, that requires maturity. A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. Okay, verse 2, the tongue of the wise makes knowledge acceptable, but the mouth of fools speaks folly. The only way I can speak wisdom in a way that's acceptable is through a degree of my own maturity, which can only happen as a follower of Christ and letting God be an influence in my life. So that's the advice I would give.
Absolutely.
Parents, we need to grow up. We need to mature in the faith of Jesus, that I can speak gently, boldly, truthfully, but with love, mm-hmm. right? Or that I could not return folly for folly, but I could speak these truths, because that's the only way I can convince my kid that these decisions have bad consequences. I have to reason with them. Mm. I have to persuade them, and the only way I can do that is if I myself am being persuaded by God about what the right way is.
Yes.
So,
absolutely.
Yeah? Ooh, a thumbs up.
Love it.
A thumbs up. And I love it.
Love it.
All right, listen now. This is an extremely difficult topic. If you are struggling, please get in touch with us. The folks at Anthem Church, at Kennebec Baptist Church, Angier Baptist Church, or Neels Creek Baptist Church. We're this partnership of churches that we are Angier Hope. We're just trying to bring light to bear upon your life, whatever challenges you're having. So we would love to come alongside you, help you, point you in the right direction, offer you the answers that Jesus offers, because we want life to be brighter for you today, tomorrow, and forever. So thank you guys for everything. Absolutely. All of y'all, God bless you.